Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? So one of the big storylines from Saints camp this week was, minicamp this week, was the fact that David Johnson was brought in for a workout. Of course, David Johnson was an all-pro early in his career with Arizona back in 2016, and had some really good years in Arizona, was part of that trade to Houston that sent DeAndre Hopkins out west. One of the many reasons why Bill O'Brien's no longer the coach in Houston. But anyway, Saints brought in David Johnson to work him out at this minicamp this weekend, and David Johnson tweeted just a bit ago this afternoon that he's not going to be joining the Saints. The tweet read, "Unfortunate, we couldn't come to terms, but appreciate the Saints for the opportunity. Journey to be continued. Hashtag God's hands." And he literally used prayer hands. So he used prayer. I don't know if he's saying the prayer hands are God's hands or if it's just in God's hands, but either way. I'm a little disappointed, candidly. We've talked about the spots on the Saints roster that still need to be supplemented. Running back is absolutely one of them. When Alvin Kamara is healthy and right, he's among the best, most dynamic backs in the game. That's not debatable. But the past couple of years, he has battled injury, and we're all pretty comfortable in assuming he's going to miss 6 games due to suspension because of the fight in Las Vegas. After Kamara, it's Mark Ingram, who, how much does Mark Ingram really have left in the tank? That is a very fair question. I asked that before he rejoined the Saints, or when he rejoined the Saints last year. I was on board with him joining the Saints last year because of what they gave up to get him, which was a 7th-round pick, and he got a bargain basement contract. So I was totally fine with that when we learned what he gave up. But Mark Ingram played 7 games for the Saints, averaged 3.8 yards a carry, just 260 yards. He was a serviceable backup rotational piece. But if you're asking him to be something more, he hasn't been that. Now, you've got Dwayne Washington on the roster, who's going to try to earn a roster spot primarily as a special teams guy. Tony Jones Jr. is going to be in the mix, although it was really disappointing last year that he had that great preseason and maybe great preseason game, singular, against Baltimore, and then it just didn't carry over when he got his opportunity in the regular season. And, of course, you're bringing in Abram Smith, and that's a big wild card, because maybe Abram Smith, the undrafted rookie out of Baylor, stuns everybody and proves he was worthy of the contract they gave him. $200,000 to sign as an undrafted free agent, which is unprecedented. You could also, in turn, say, then why wasn't he drafted? And all that's fair, but they need help at running back. They need something we haven't seen. They either need Tony Jones to prove he can be a stud, Abram Smith to prove he's a guy, Mark Ingram to drink from the fountain of youth, or they need to find somebody else. But as we've talked about so often, the options are limited. The free agent options that were out there for the Saints in this offseason have sort of whittled away. As one by one, we've seen guys sign with other teams. Sony Michel was really the most coveted. He signed with the Dolphins. Phillip Lindsay signed with Indianapolis. Tariq Cohen suffered that unfortunate injury. Darrell Williams signed with Arizona. So your options are limited, and David Johnson really is the best of the remaining options, and apparently they weren't able to get a deal done. The thing I'll tell you to file away is if you're David Johnson, and at this point in the offseason you still didn't have a landing spot, that's not necessarily to say that anybody's waiting in the wings to sign you. So maybe between now and camp, if he doesn't have any other takers and the Saints get into camp and they realize they need a body, maybe you bring him in then. That's not unprecedented. I'll remind you, last year, Quan Alexander, they didn't sign him until they were into camp. I think it was August the 5th when they came to terms with Quan Alexander last year. But they knew what he could do. It's the benefit of bringing a guy like that in now. You bring him in now. You work him out now. You know what he has to offer now. And then when you keep that file sort of updated, and if you need to go to it, you have an updated file on what you know about the player, and he's a little familiar anyway with your coaching staff, with your personnel. So I will say that I'm disappointed. I really was kind of hoping that David Johnson would wow, would earn a contract, and you'd feel better about your running back room going into camp. But I guess the other part of me realistically looks at it and says there's a reason why a 30-year-old running back who's a former All-Pro remains unsigned when so many free agent running backs have been picked up at various spots. So the Saints search for running back continues. Could they potentially trade for somebody? It's always a possibility if they determine they have a need. But again, I think that need only really becomes magnified if and when Alvin Kamara gets suspended, although we all just assume it's going to happen. It still hasn't happened yet. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.